When I started living for myself, that was the first state of change. I grew up that you're not supposed to say how you feel or do, you're just supposed to keep your mouth shut and that's it. How I became HIV positive is kind of like unique or whatever. I was sexually assaulted. Someone put something in my drink. I reached out to one of my extended uncles and he told me to go get checked out. And that's how I found out that I was HIV positive. Being a black trans individual, I just couldn't believe that happened to me, especially when I did everything for me not to be positive. The reason why I did the isolation part or not want to be bothered is because I was afraid of what other people might say. Because I'm a type of person that like to keep things in. I don't tell people what's going on with me. And I could say once I decided to start living for me, that was the biggest change of joy. It doesn't matter what other people think. Nobody is perfect. Everybody needs a support system. That was like a suicidal moment just for me, just to keep on trying to please this family member, and you're trying to tell me that I'm going to go to hell because of this, because I'm not living the way you think I should live. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to need some type of support system. My life is bigger and greater than me, and that's what I always said to myself. The thing is, I am a heterosexual male. I'm just living my life authentically. I'm not the person who you thought you wanted me to be, but now you see me out here, I'm being who I am, and that's where I'm at today. I'm still unscathed, I'm still untouched, I'm still here. I made it out. Just telling my story, that's one of the things, and I think that's where I started becoming my authentic self, talking about what I'm going through. And I also have to thank my ex as well, because she put my status out on Facebook, and I had to take my power away from her and other people that was trying to hurt me. And that's by me telling my story, that took away everything, because you don't have anything over my head. Nobody can have anything on my head, because I'm gonna tell it before you could tell it. That's about being your authentic self.
Change is propelled by desire, by one realizing that where I'm at right now, I might not want to be. I've been HIV positive, it'll be 30 years in October. And so I was raised by the HIV gurus. I was born and raised in a very small town in Indiana called East Chicago, Indiana, and ended up working at a national agency in DC. One thing that I realized, coming from the Midwest, one would have given up if they hadn't had a praying grandmother, and if they hadn't had a praying mother. My mom has always been one of those mothers that has protected her children. But I always knew that, I didn't necessarily know that it was a word called gay, but I knew that I had an attraction toward boys. I grew up in the Church of God in Christ, and so, my mom, through therapy, I learned that she might not have the capacity to love a daughter. I look like this now, but I go home as my mother's son. All of the things that can be taken off and all of the things that can be put away or put more conservatively, I do that. I was raised in the church, and so I always loved God. Although, God didn't like homosexuality and God was going to send you to hell and all of these things, I found peace with a God that was loving, understanding, and kind. When I tested positive, there weren't all of those wraparound. My mentors were those that were in the HIV work, and so I was forced to do this work. You're not gonna give up. You're going to survive. Each time I came out of prison, each time I came back from getting high, they wrapped their arms around me, and that was the village. Because a lot of my adulthood was prison. I got involved in sex work really, really early, moving to Indianapolis. What we become familiar with is pain. Most people say, oh, you're brilliant, you're this individual. I don't look like what I've been through. And if I were to define success, it would encapsulate being resilient to be here. And not just to be here, but how to stay here, because all of us can get here. But can you stay here? One of the bigger mistakes is that people want to define how I can succeed. Mine ain't evidence-based. Mine is experience-based. I don't know what here is, but whatever here is today I'm okay. Today I didn't get high. Today I didn't think about killing myself. Today I didn't wake up homeless. Today I had the option if I could have food. The here for me has been an expansive journey. It's that thing, I think I can, that train, the choo-choo train. Well, I'm that choo-choo train, and I knew that I could. I just needed someone to show me how. My success is what I define success, not what your norm is for success. Don't define masculinity or femininity by the norms. Let it be what you're comfortable with. 30 years ago, HIV was a death sentence. Today, being HIV positive, you can be so much more successful. Now we're grateful because we have tons of those wraparounds. Extreme joy for me is not materialistic. It's about a vibe that, sustainability has allowed me to create. My mom and my sister have been the joy of my life. It was the 3 of us before it was the 5 of us. My mother married when I was 7. My stepfather was a policeman. My mother was in the court system. And then I got a little brother who is an amazing dentist in New Orleans, has a private practice. And so, I think extreme joy is being accountable. Oh my God, it was so many times I was not accountable. Christmas and birthdays and weddings and funerals. So extreme joy for me is accountability. Being able to say, I'm here. When you take attendance, I'm here. This is not an easy solution. This is not an easy journey. There are so many obstacles, not even the obstacles of us trying to figure out how to navigate this life. The obstacles that society puts in front of us while we navigate this life that make us feel like what we're doing is not worthy of doing it. And how dare you feel that you should have rights to do the things you do. I say be gentle. Do I believe that mentorship is important? I believe that mentorship is extremely important, but I believe that the correct mentor is correct one. I don't believe there's one mentor. I've had a collection of mentors that have taught me throughout.
When you look at the word emerge, it talks about something that's brought apparent. It's always been there, it just was never apparent. And if we constantly keep going through our journey and beating the odds, eventually our purpose will become visible. And I think if people recognize no matter what you're going through, there is tomorrow. There is more to the story. You just have to live through it. I work in banking. I had no idea that I was going to have this grown-up love for math. If you give me a number off the top of my head, I quickly round it off and I can tell you what the answer is. It's just real crazy how now I'm actually in banking, and it's been for over 15 years, how all that kind of rolls out, even in your childhood. When I first was diagnosed with HIV, it wasn't a lot of places where women came forward. I was actually at a church conference. There was a friend of mine he used to be an evangelist, and when he first became an evangelist, I was one of his first admins. It just so happened that his conference was the same time my conference was supposed to go on, so I didn't have to take off. Well, when I went there, we was busy trying to get some things in order, so he had a health fair going on at the time. Even though I was married, that because I came from DC and it was common in the area, I didn't know a lot of things. A lot of things were myths, but I thought they were facts. That, hey, it could be in your system. Those were things I first believed. And so I said, I get tested every year. Well, I wanted to believe and I wanted to prove that the test was wrong. From September to January, I sat in how much long do I have to live? I had to leave my home and relocate. There was just a lot of things that was going on. And so I started succumbing to that. And I remember one day crying on the floor. And I said, I'm sorry. I said I would not get up off this floor until I see a reason in this. And I remember I was praying to God. I said, I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to get up. I have to see something in this because the pain was so much. It hurt so much. And I said, I'm not getting up until I see it. And then out of nowhere, I remember being on the floor. It hit me that I wasn't the only person like this. You was just a wife. I wasn't being promiscuous. I wasn't doing a lot of things that I thought were attached to this. And I said, there's another wife somewhere just like this. I wasn't strong enough for me. I just wasn't. I didn't have it in me. But me thinking about somebody else and someone else being in their home, not understanding, crying, just like me, was enough for me to say, okay, get up. You have to go find her. You have to at least be a voice, because no one was a voice for you. No one talked about these things. You got to get up, because there's more of them that's out there that's like you. And so that was the thing that started connecting me to other people. And I always hear my leaders talk about exposure is so key. And that's so real, because I started getting mentors in my life, and this person would connect me to this place, and this person would connect me to that place. And then ultimately I'm here. And the depression, it comes up. I'm not gonna lie. It does come up every now and then because it's hard at times. But it wasn't like a state of depression that I was in before. And so helping others was a thing that kind of pulled me out of my hole. But what keeps me in the posture of victory and expectancy is just that, because I have gone through so much and I have beat the odds so much. I was that person that was told that you wouldn't graduate from high school. You're not going to get a good job. Your attitude is horrible. Now I kind of I coach people in their attitudes. I kept beating the odds. And so when I looked at it and saw where I was, and I had this list of things that I had overcame and I had beat the odds, and people say is their God, their faith. And I looked at my journey, and my faith brought me here. I knew that there was more. This could not be it, because every time in life that I thought the abuse was it, and I thought that's where I was going to end. I thought me staying in a car, that was going to be it. It was something in me that was like, no, it's more. But I would have to say my children, my church family, my immediate family, I called the meeting and brought them all in. And that at that particular point, I didn't know anything. All I knew was I'm going to die. I went through homelessness as a teenager here and there. I went through abuse. I'm finally at this job. Everything is thriving. I'm traveling and I'm here. I'm going to die. Oftentimes, what happens in our lives is that the events kind of take over, and the unknown kind of shaping you and molding you. And so I had kind of got into that a little bit. Depression had sat in pretty bad. And I always hear my leaders talk about exposure is so key. And that's so real, because I started getting mentors in my life, and this person would connect me to this place, and this person would connect me to that place. No matter what I face, it keeps me in that state of victory. You have to think your way through it. You have to see your way through it. If you don't see it, get people around you that see it for you.
There's so many different phases of my life. I was a person like on the street, and I lived in sort of an underworld type of environment. It took me a long time to get to get away from there, but things was happening, friends was dying, people was getting locked up, and live your life. HIV or not, being diagnosed was probably one of the worst things, one of the worst days of my life, finding out, getting that information from a doctor. After that happened to me, I just knew that I was going to die. Working for Jones Day Law Firm, catering. Life was real good. Like, I could have never foreseen what was coming down the road, because I'm sitting in a hospital, and the only thing I could think about that day, and I still remember, I knew my wife was coming there that evening, and I knew I had to tell my wife. And I couldn't believe this doctor was telling me. He was like, you don't even have to tell her. And I'm looking at him like, man, you done lost your mind. And all I'm thinking is that, you know what? Please don't let this woman have what I have. You know what I'm saying? That was my biggest fear. Looking back, it's sort of funny, because at that time, that's when me and my wife had first started going to church. I mean, now I'm trying to give myself to the Lord. And looking back, you're going to give me a Job moment. Because first of all, I'm an older person now. And this only happened like 10, 12 years ago. I was older then. So I saw myself as somebody that was going to die. Because I had no knowledge of HIV. I didn't have anybody around me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I knew some people, but they weren't like close in my space. So I didn't have a lot of information. So the first thing, I'm scrambling. So I met the Heart to Hand people. And I met the lady Deidre Spears, right? It wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here right now. Because she gave me that one word, advocate. And she said, do it for yourself. And when she gave me that right there, man, I was off to the races. Because then I knew how to go to the doctor, and not just him give me information, but ask him questions. I didn't know I had options. Some people, you tell them you got HIV, and they be like, oh, it's okay, it's cool. They get behind your back, oh man, he got that thing. I even say it sometimes because I forget I got it, and I would tell anybody, man, like, don't give up. See, some people don't understand until they're on the brink of death. And they don't understand how good life really is, and making these moments in your life, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, but having all these moments in your life. Just hold on, get you some information, get you a good doctor, and just and just sit still for a minute. Cause it's gonna be all right though, you know? Like I say, like in my life right now today, I'm going through a little mini crisis right now. You know what I'm saying? But after dealing with what I dealt with, it's no more crises. They're all little fires I gotta put out. You know what I'm saying? So it's sort of funny. I thought God was like, I thought he was punishing me. But in a crazy type of way, he blessed me. It's like, how you feel like you blessed and you HIV positive? Because everything else in my life opened up though. He gave me discernment. He gave me compassion. It's like when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do when I text my family and friends, I send out a text about the Lord. That's the first thing I think about is him. That bad boy I was telling you about, he never thought like that. He never cared about that. You know, I was a selfish me person. Now I do care about other people. You know, I will call a person on the phone and say, I love you. It's like where I'm at now in life, like HIV is not even, and I'm not trying to minimize this for anybody or anything. For me, for Juan right now, it's not a big deal.
For me, victory has looked like me taking ownership of my life. I've always had this like passion for activism in my bones. My mother is a special education teacher. She kind of always instilled the love for humans, the love for people in me. My roots are around art, cooking, music, theater. All of those things are very important to me. My family loves outdoors. Whenever I'm in Texas, especially Marshall, Texas, no matter how hot it is, I'm usually outside. As a person who at the time identified as gay, I didn't necessarily know what I needed to do in order to protect myself outside of using condom. Being from Texas, we didn't get instilled with any comprehensive sexual education. I was on the first day of me going to class, I had tested positive for HIV. There wasn't really much connection for me to any health system. My HIV status was completely, I just left it alone. It was about 3 years that I did not do anything. I didn't go to care, I didn't get medication. I myself, being a person living with HIV, also was very impacted by the knowledge of what Heart to Hand and Us Helping Us and other agencies in this community are doing for people like me. Whenever I wasn't stably housed or when I didn't know where I was working, it was very difficult for me to remember to take medication every day. Being 19 years old, I didn't tell anyone about my HIV status, my new diagnosis. I just decided to deal with it by myself because I felt like people would not want to be around me anymore. Stigma kept me in the closet because I did not want to die. That wasn't what I wanted. I just didn't know how to deal with it. My path was what it was supposed to be because it has helped shape the person I am today. My fiance is HIV negative, I'm HIV positive, and we have amazing intimacy. We've been together for almost 3 years now. People will love you. Taking ownership of your HIV diagnosis and not letting other people shape your narrative is absolutely paramount. But staying in care means that you are taking that daily dose every day and trying to obtain an undetectable viral load. One of the biggest myths about HIV is that it's a death sentence. It is absolutely not. I think that we've worked really hard to get away from that narrative, but it is far from that. Outside of taking a pill every single day, I really don't even think about me being HIV positive. One of the biggest things that we all can do, regardless of if we're HIV positive or not, is fight stigma. Making sure that we hug people who are living with HIV, making sure that we embrace people, kiss them. It is a very manageable diagnosis. It's easy to be able to push forward. I would tell Caleb on day one of diagnosis that it's not your fault. Stop thinking that it's your fault. It's not. And that you will find people that love you regardless of your HIV status. So now I feel that now that I am in the doctor and I'm going consistently, I have more of a holistic approach and proactive approach to my healthcare. They're not just checking for my T-cell counts. They're also checking, how are my liver and kidneys functioning? How's everything going in my body, And that's something that for especially us Black people, we probably haven't been historically accustomed to. And so that is an opportunity, if you are someone living with any type of chronic illness, to be able to engage in healthcare in a way that you haven't before. The only other thing I would say is how vital family is to the success of people living with HIV, having support. And that family doesn't have to be biological. I think I'm a proponent for chosen family. As a queer person, I have chosen family. You know, my kids, they call me mom, and they can depend on me whenever they need to. But that has been important for me, to be able to maintain my undetectable status and to have housing. And I know that my kids, who, especially the ones living with HIV, without our chosen family, they wouldn't be where they are.
When you're living in your purpose, or if you're wanting to work in a cause, people want to know why, and a lot of times it's because you've been impacted by that thing, and in this case it's HIV. I grew up in Coolidge, Georgia. I stand on the backs of some very strong women, and I didn't appreciate it until I left. When I moved away, I realized that it gave me a sense of who I was, and a sense of community, and a sense of service. I actually got a job with the Centers for Disease Control right out of college, and so I thought that, oh, this is interesting. I didn't know anything about CDC, I didn't know anything about HIV, and I thought that it would be interesting just to do it for a few years. I was a post-test counselor, and I told people that they were HIV positive. And so in that process, I'd seen enough, and I was frustrated with the services that I saw that were being provided for people who were living with HIV. I was moving up the ladder, but I didn't feel like I was making the difference that I wanted to make. The early years, my best friend Sally Joseph, we just decided that we were going to sit down and figure this process out. And so we wanted to make sure that as we linked people to care, as we told folks that they were HIV positive, that we empowered them to take control of their health. And so we got an organization to help us start Heart to Hand in our kitchens. Like, we literally worked day and night trying to figure it out. I want to create an environment where people can come and they can be their whole self. It's not just about HIV, it's about them living in their wholeness. We don't want people to get stuck in that diagnosis. We want you to get diagnosed, get your medicine, and keep living your life. And I serve my clients, I serve the staff in the same way. A person that's living with HIV, even if you don't have insurance, you don't have to have a dime. We can get treatment for you. We can support you to get you to the other side of that diagnosis. Always been about me making sure that my clients receive the services that they needed. And I think that's what makes Heart to Hand different, is we're all one family. Love the people that I serve, and I love the people that I work with, my staff. So my purpose, I get to live it as a full-time job. So I get to serve people as a full-time job. And I think about where I grew up. I guess I'll bring it full circle. My grandmother, in a small town, I remember Sunday dinners where she would cook for our preacher, but she'd also cook for everybody in the neighborhood. And so I didn't realize this until a few years ago, is that this didn't happen by accident. You know, it's like, so who am I and how did I become who I am? And of course, living in that small town, I hated every moment of it, or I thought I did, until I kind of look back to say, oh, that's why I'm who I am. My grandmother cooking for everybody, and my mother currently doing that now. And so my mother is now in the same small town and making sure that there was actually a woman who lived up the street from her who was HIV positive. My mother was taking her to the doctor. I'm looking forward to where Heart to Hand is going to go. I'm looking forward to the legacy that we will leave. I'm blessed. I'm grateful that I have been able to find my purpose